Welcome to Bigger Than the Game podcast with Jeremy Jose. My name's Jose Ruiz, and I'm joined by my tag team partner, man, my main man, Jeremy Dove. Jeremy, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. How you doing?
Good. It's Friday. It's football started. We're recording this on August 12th, so Eagles' first preseason game. I'm already like, I don't know what I'm picking out for the parade. I don't know yet.
No, it's all the teams, man. Watching the Giants Patriots game was yesterday, so it was real interesting. It's just weird, like the summer goes by so fast, and it's like
I know.
Hall of Fame starts ceremony, and then the Hall of Fame game, and then it's like football. It really is here. Hard Knocks started with the Lions. Right. Love Hard Knocks, so I like that they picked the Lions, the different squad.
So do I.
It's real interesting, but it's fun because we're getting into those dog days of baseball, the pennant races and all that, and to kind of see we're finishing up the finale of The Captain, this docuseries that ESPN did at the perfect time, right in summer, right in baseball season, on Derek Jeter, and the finale aired this past Thursday. And Jose, how do you feel? We'll get to how we feel about the overall series, because it's done. But how do you feel the finale was?
I didn't like it. I thought this was the worst episode out of all of them. I know they pretty much covered everything up to that point, and I knew like the CEO and the Marlin stuff was coming, but it was and they got pretty heavy with some personal stuff with Jeter and his wife, but. I don't know. It was just I could have been done the past episode. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think this one they were milking it with this last one. I watched the whole thing, but it was just when it was going, it was just like I found some of the like Marlon stuff, like how he was like getting everything kind of situated and preparing for like that ownership, like next level type of thing, but. I don't know. I thought this was like about Derek Jeter, the player, and then this last episode came. So what about you, Derek?
I think that they should have probably looking at it like left some episode at the end of episode 6 where he's getting toward the end, those last few years, with the Yankees after they had won in 2009. I think if you put like those last few years where he gets hurt in the LCS against Detroit, have that open this episode, and then we get to even the 3,000th hit, and then we get to the last game and all that. And then even if it would have went a little bit longer, because I get wanting to show the family, because no one, that's part of the mystique. He was the most popular playboy, Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark type of dude for so long. So to see like him be married and to see his personal life is a big part. And he's a father now, with 3 daughters. I think that was good, but the career, it just was kind of like the final game, and then it was like that was it. And I feel like you should have gave a little more baseball into this one if you would have like timed it a little bit better, and then go into the family and the afterlife. I still did enjoy seeing
me too.
Him talk about his family and being a father and all that stuff. And I enjoyed his wife was really, I know we talked about how good looking she is, but she really was a good candid interview. In the episode she appeared in, his parents and sister have been great throughout, but his wife brought it too. So I think she kind of helped save that last episode, her candidness, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And he even said it he was like, "Whoa, she's saying a little bit too much." She was talking about him tripping on the carpet when he was hurt, around the house. And I agree. Like, I think she saved this last episode because. I know they were talking about some real personal stuff when it came to her and, some real heavy shit. And, she was very honest and, you could tell she was emotional. Obviously she should be. And, she was very honest about like the anxiety and depression they followed after, almost passing away, giving birth, the last time. And, that's really heavy, dude. Like that's some heavy stuff there. And she was very, like, I give her a lot of credit because a lot of times people don't want to like, especially if it's not in the open already, like to be that vulnerable in front of like the whole world, she did. And she how can I say, like, I don't want to say she played her part, but like she really like shined and like being vulnerable like that. I appreciated that.
Someone, I don't know what her, I know she's, has her own career. I know she modeled. She's a mom, wife, has a lot of stuff. But honestly, with that I wouldn't mind. Like, I haven't looked. Maybe she has. If she's done podcast episode, I wouldn't mind hearing her because you see her personality and it's interesting to me. So like, if she's on other episodes of like podcasts or if she's in more media stuff, I should look it up because she was really good. And I mean, honestly, I kind of wonder, like, because I like the part that the ending with the two friends and like the kind of like the opposite where you have. I was really glad that they gave. I know you mentioned Gerald Williams when we looked at like episode 1, and so that they really talked about his path because it was early in 2022. So I didn't know if they would talk. I knew they would probably have an in memoriam thing, but I didn't know they would add that in there. So the fact that they did add it in there and her talking about the tight knit and the closeness. And, I liked, but like we've been saying, they went back to A-Rod to end it.
Yeah.
And she brought the realness to me about the A-Rod at the ending more than Derek Jeter did.
Yeah, I don't know how A-Rod showed back up. Like he was back, and it's funny in my notes. I was just like, A-Rod's back, like question mark. Like I was done with the A-Rod stuff, and like I know they're trying to like. I know they're promoting that he's going to be like Jeter's going to be on, I believe it's A-Rod's podcast, something like that. But the K cast, something like that, whatever it's called.
He has a pod. Yeah, he does have one. I haven't listened to it in a little while.
Apparently Jeter's going on there and they're going to talk some stuff out. I don't know, but
it's really weird.
It is.
The whole thing is weird, man.
Because I feel like it's like they're just setting that up and. For folks to listen to that.
Well, because, I mean, I could be off, and we're big sports fans, we're sports historians. They're talking about them being linked, like DiMaggio and Williams, Ali, Frazier, Bird, and Magic. And I'm like, I don't hear people linking them two together all the time. Like
Larry and Magic. Yeah. Like, no, it's not
Chamberlain
like
and Russell, A-Rod and Jeter. I'm like, I don't be hearing that, in my opinion.
I don't either, and I never, ever, ever felt like that either. Like watching them play, we've both seen both their careers from start to finish. I never felt like that at once. Now I knew, and we've talked about this throughout these episodes. We knew there was like a competitiveness with all the shortstops there, with Nomar, Jeter, and A-Rod. Like we knew that, like that was a given, but I didn't know like. We were going to talk about these. Like, I don't think of Jeter and go, yeah, A-Rod. Like, I don't do that, and vice versa. I don't think of A-Rod and I go, ooh, Jeter, yeah. Like, not even close. Like, honestly, like I don't at all. Like, that's the best way I can put it. I don't know.
When that first year for a little bit, it was like, okay, A-Rod going to third. But then, honestly, after that first year, you had the Red Sox stuff, and that rivalry was there. And so it was more like A-Rod and the rivalry. Then those other years, it's kind of like just A-Rod, and he can't get done the postseason. And I remember Jabba Chamberlain was getting hype, and it was all this other stuff. And then even in 2009, it was kind of like they were on the team, but they were just like two opposing, like they were just two guys a part of the mix. Because it was like, what's CeCe doing? What's Swisher doing? What's AJ Burnett doing in 2009? Like, it was kind of, and then A-Rod had a good postseason, but it wasn't like, oh, Jeter, like that. It was like, very quickly it became they're just teammates to me in New York.
Yeah.
So that's why this whole thing, I'm like, I don't know if this is overhype or I can admit when I'm wrong if I missed it, if I just didn't really pick up on it all these years. Like, I don't know.
I don't think we missed it. I'll be straight up. I just think, and they didn't have to do this, but I think that because the documentary was so good, I think that was the angle. You know what I mean? We were talking about it, we talked about episode 1. It's like, what's the angle? Who's the bad guy? Who's the heel? However you want to put it. And I don't know if it was because of that and they needed to like sell this a little more because A-Rod's still a big name, and I'm thinking it's that. I don't know, but again, I don't even think they needed to do that. Like, I think this thing was so good that they could have just let it play out the way it was going to play out without all the A-Rod stuff, and they were milking that.
The one thing I guess I can say on it though, especially here in Hannah Jeter Talk, is not even I'll take out like the competitive, like is there a rivalry or they're linked career wise, but I think off the field, I'm guessing that was like that was a not just like there's like acquaintances, there's like yeah we're friends, and then there's like brothers, best friend, and I'm like were they like best like they were like that close of friends, and like there's like a hole in their hearts or something like you know what I mean like that's
Yeah,
like if that's what it is like because sometimes you see players and like the stories about like Wilt and Russell coming out like oh yeah they were that close to like their families were close like
yeah, like even Ali Frazier, the same thing. Like they were cool at really, really cool at one point.
so it's like
Yeah,
that's the thing I'm taking away like their careers being linked no but like off the field in private they were like that close it wasn't just for like oh we have a shared interest with these young shortstops or whatever. It was like that was like they were best of friends. Is what I'm taking away from this last episode.
yeah. So am I. And look, if they got to do that, they got to do that. And if it's good for them, it's good for them. And I guess they do got to like kind of squash some stuff. I guess but I don't know. I'm glad you brought that up quick because I was going to bring that up as well. I'm done with the A-Rod stuff. Like I think it's time to move on from that. But again, it does look like that's still a thing, and it's bothering both of them, obviously.
Do you think what's surprising to me is throughout this show, now they were on as talking heads, but and obviously Gerald Williams, I think that was cool because not until he died did I know that him and Jeter were that close, at least for me.
Yeah, yeah,
When he Pat and Jeter right and then the articles came out, and that was like February of this year. So before that, I knew he was tight with Jorge, with Pettit, with Mariano. Like that's who I knew he was close with. So, are you surprised? The friendships that were talked about, they didn't talk about those guys and that friendship to me like a lot. Like I didn't get that in the docuseries.
You mean
The core
like
four,
the core four, okay.
including Bernie Williams too.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like Posada a little bit, but yeah, I felt like it was more. They talked more about Gerald Williams. About he was on there. I feel like a lot. And rest in peace to Gerald Williams, but he was on there a lot, and they did talk about that relationship a whole lot more. I agree more than the other four combined. I felt like there was more talk about that Jeter Clemens relationship. Like Jeter was talking about that more than anything else. And I don't know if he was just more like he doesn't want to talk about that stuff and he wants to kind of keep it close to the vest. But I don't know. I know that the Posada thing, the wedding pictures and all that were there. Even the pictures with like Gerald Williams, Posada was there too. I mean, these guys looked like they were really close. It was cool. Like you talking about Hannah Jeter was talking about like how their families were really close and they were showing those pictures. And I thought that was really cool to see because again, like you can see all these guys, talking about Jeter and giving their insight, but to see how close they were and for them and to hear a little bit about it was really cool. But you could tell like the Gerald Williams thing, it was rough for him, to talk about, and he was getting emotional, and he was just saying he's a special one. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's for a dude that seems really like it's hard for him to like get close to people and trust people. He lost somebody very, very close to him, and it obviously it's affecting him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting because this is me as a sports fan. I think when you play, especially team sports, you see that camaraderie, and it does build. So I'm very fascinated when I look at players past and present, and being like, okay, like we know there's like, all right, we get along as teammates, but then those relationships that go beyond the playing field or playing court, whatever, and that's like a brotherhood, like they're tight out, like they hang out together, they talk, even like if one guy gets traded or signed, that friendship's there. When their careers are done, they're still cool. I'm always fascinated to see like who has those dynamics in locker rooms and clubhouses with each other. So that's why that's me. I like those things to kind of see like that's cool that way after Gerald Williams had been gone from New York, gone from playing for years. Posada has been retired, Jeter's been retired, but they were godfather to each other's children, each other's
Right.
weddings. That's a great thing to see.
Yeah, because that's some important relationships, and even to the fact that Gerald Williams was on the Braves when the Yankees beat the Braves, and they still talked about that a little bit. you know.
And they gave him
So
a ring. It
right,
wasn't a doc, but he got a World Series ring. Yeah.
right, and it was just you can see that even though he was on the opposite team, they still allow him to even talk about that series because again, it was just important for Jeter, I guess, to have him on that. So I thought that was really cool. One thing I really enjoyed was how they kind of like combined like the Hall of Fame call because I thought that was like a pretty cool like scene
Mm-hmm.
there, and then how they combined it with like that draft day, like that first call they got from the
Mm-hmm.
Yankees. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was all well done, and they were going like back and forth, and it was funny because Jeter's father almost had the same reaction. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just I was like, man, like that was cool. I really
That's a
enjoyed that.
great point. I agree. It was cool to see, but it was well done by Randy Wilkins and like editing and putting that together, like to really see the complete full circle
Right?
from the draft in '91 till almost 29 years later in 2020, getting that Hall of Fame call. And it's like, the house may be bigger and now there's some more people, there's a wife and children there,
Yeah.
but it's like that same core of what is important to Jeter and his family. That's what matters, and that's one thing you kind of could feel about Jeter is how the way his parents and sister were at the games all the time, but it's really cool. Like he walks the walk and talks the talk, where that inner circle is small, it's tight. Once you're in there, though, that means that you're a loyal ass person, and he's loyal to you for life. Like that's what I
Yep.
like about that scene. So that's a great point. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite parts. Probably my favorite part of the episode. But again, like also to get into like the Marlin stuff and the ownership stuff, I also to hear Jeter and his wife talk about all the stuff that was going on when him trying to make that jump from ex player to front office ownership. I thought was really like not cool what they were going through, but the way for them to talk about it, I thought was really good. Just kind of let us in a little bit on what was going on there, because again, we never know what's going on in someone's life, and for him to be trying to figure all that out, getting these investors together, and all that stuff that goes with that, and then for them to be going through like everything with the pregnancy and all that, I appreciated them bringing that into the episode as well.
No, I appreciated the Marlon talk, and I appreciate because it goes back to that thing, and it was very weird having MJ talk about this because I'm like, you're the worst owner, one of the owners
Dude,
in sports.
I
It
gotta
is
quote
awful.
him. I gotta quote him real quick. He was like, you gotta go in there with the vision and make sure that you see through that vision. And I was like, dude, you're the last person that should be saying that.
I'm
Like,
like, well, I think the Bobcats made the playoffs like twice, maybe in his ownership, maybe in all these years, maybe I think at max 2 times, both first round exits. Like, I don't know if he's won a playoff game as an owner. Like, he's a
yeah,
terrible owner. Um, to me, Jeter looked way more hands on in his time with the Marlins than Michael with Charlotte, to
yeah,
be quite honest. But I'll say it was interesting to see, like you said, what's going behind the scenes, but to see Jeter in that CEO role and that he's that player. And I like that he talked like what before the Brian Cashman thing. And I
mm-hmm.
think he knew. I think honestly, I don't think he wasn't a CEO yet. Well, or maybe he was. Like he had done all that stuff. Yeah, he was a CEO before, maybe, but like him kind of giving Cashman like a
Yeah,
pass, and in his mind, I think that was that whole kind of MJ creating beef thing. It did get bad with them, like it got real. But in his mind, him being like we butted heads a lot. I don't think Brian Cashman saw it that way. Like I don't think
no,
he
no,
looked at it that way, but Jeter did, and whatever. But
yeah. I didn't get that feel from Cashman either. And again, maybe he was holding some stuff back, but I'm sure he was. But he was very honest. Again, like we talked about towards the end of Jeter's career and how he was evaluating Jeter, and he was talking about what he was telling Jeter, and I didn't get the sense that he was just like hating Jeter and stuff like that. I felt like again, like you mentioned, like that Jordan, like that competitor thing, that trying to put a chip on your shoulder, not having one. They're trying to create one, and I think that was just something for Jeter to motivate himself. And he said I use it as motivation. And these dudes, man, when you're great like that, you gotta figure something out. You know what I'm saying? Like to
Yeah.
motivate you after a while, because again, the same thing gets stale.
Well, let me ask you, Jeter. It was incomplete. Yeah, they did make a playoff appearance in that shortened COVID year in 2020. But do you think a lot of times what you see in sport, especially the major sports, if you're a great player, you don't equal out to be a great coach, a great GM, a great owner.
Right.
We have some exceptions. John Elway has won as an executive in football. John Lynch has been doing well in San Fran as an executive. Like having success. And, those guys, they're both Hall of Famers, great players in football. But traditionally, you don't see if a former player has success, they really weren't the star player. And I'm wondering, do you think if Jeter stuck around, like, would he have been a successful? And success is different for everybody. I don't know if that for you. I don't know if that means championship, if that means continued playoff, appearances, whatever the case. But do you think he would have been a successful CEO?
I think in Miami it would have been tough, and I'm so glad that they've really talked about that a little bit. Because like that's look, I've been to Miami. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? Like I know it's the Hurricanes are big there. I know the Dolphins are big, but man, like to try to own a team in Miami, these fans do not come out. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't come out for Heat games in the play when the LeBron runs. Like you put on that Heat game, that arena was half empty until like late in the first quarter, and then fans start showing up and stuff like that. Like it's a brutal sports city, to own a team in, and I'm kind of glad they talked about it. Now, do I think his vision and how he maybe came in as a CEO, would have been successful? I think anywhere else he probably would have been, or different places he would have been. I think he has that work ethic. I think he has that drive. Obviously, like all of that stuff that he had as a player could suit you well in that CEO role. But I just think the way that team, you need to be. I mean, as we all know, if you're watching this sports podcast on YouTube right now, you know about the Miami Marlins or the Florida Marlins, and it's just success. And then you have to tear it down because, again, there's nobody showing up. And it's a shame because one thing I'll say, like their farm system was great because you see guys coming out of that farm system now that are playing today and they're pretty good. And
right.
But you also get into all the guys that they had to trade away because they couldn't pay them because, again, like ownership and all this stuff, like it's rough, man. So is that Jeter's fault? No. I think, and you mentioned that, the year they had like, the COVID season, like they made the playoffs and won a round. And, if fans are showing up, you keep, all these other young players that have to be traded away because, again, you're not going to be able to pay them. So let's get somebody before they're gone. And again, the farm system is always good. Like I just feel like if they had support, I think it could have turned into a successful run.
Do you think remember his wife said they were looking Tampa or Miami because of location? You think if he buys the Tampa Rays, it's a different story?
I think it's the same thing, honestly, like, and the Rays have been good, Tampa has been good. And again, you still, that's another franchise that you can't keep great players there. Now I think they've had more success in doing that than the Marlins have for sure. But because you can even look at like 2008, they've been good since then. You know what I mean? Like, and
right.
they had years where obviously they're not, but they're still last year they were a really good team. So I think they have a better chance of keeping guys. So maybe in Tampa he does have more success because, it's more of an opportunity to create like a long-term plan. Like you can't have a 5-year plan when you're like owning the Marlins because you just can't. So Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what do you think it is when you see great players try to coach or be GMs or executives, and it's in their sport, and then they struggle? Like, why do you think that is?
I just think that those players have a certain drive, right? And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Larry Bird, but like these players, they were born with that. You know what I'm saying? So throughout like high school, college, like wherever they were playing previously to like the pro level, it's like that drive that gets them there. Like they're going to do whatever it takes to get there, right? But when you're a coach, for example, and you don't see these guys having that same drive and the want to and all that, whatever you want to call it, it's very frustrating. And because especially you expect everyone to be the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of guys fall short of those expectations because people are just not like that. If not, there will be so many great players. You know what I mean? Like, but that can't be the case. So I think that's a big part of it. Like the expectation they put on other people because that's what they expect from themselves. So they expect that from everyone, and it's hard to live up to that expectation. What do you think about that, Darren?
I think you made a great point, and I think that's the thing. Coaching, is, whether we see it or not, it's teaching, and at its core. Now, when you get to the high levels, a lot of times it can be you're kind of being like a CEO, but you're still, in the end, with teaching, you're managing people. And in being a CEO of, even if you might still be a coach, or in Jeter's case, he was a CEO, you're managing people. And like you said, as a teacher, you're going to have that student who's naturally driven, and they pick it up, right away. You show them something once and they got it and they can take off. You're going to have those who you got to show them again and again and again and again. And that's not due to that they're not trying. They just take a little bit longer to pick it up. And you got to be patient with them and realize that they're not going to get it quick. You got those who show ability and they aren't working hard, but you see the potential. And it's like, why aren't you? You don't see what I see in you? You could be so great. And you have to deal with all that every day. And a great player, you may be playing with people like that, but it's a different thing than having to be the one to coach it, if that makes sense. Like, or to be the executive and to pick that person out. It's a different kind of a thing.
Right.
And you have to be able to see, like, not just the great stars, but if you're the coach, how do I coach the guy who's a bench player never going to get in? How do I, draft that guy or bring that person in? He could be a good backup. Like, it's totally different. So it's that you have to have more patience and be a teacher and be knowing different people, but also being able to explain it.
Yeah.
I always laugh at the Bill Russell story. Kenny Smith told it when Russell was coaching the Kings, and he was like, he got the team around for practice. He's going over rebounding, and he was like, you just box out and do this. And I think it was Kenny said, was like, Hayward Workman was like, so what do you do if like some scenario happened? What if a guy's doing this? Like how do you get around that? And he said Bill Russell just looked at him and said, just go get the ball. Just go get it. Like that's what he said. He just looked at him and he's like, but that's Bill Russell. Bill Russell getting 20 rebounds a night is just go and get it. But not everyone is just. Some people you have to teach, like, this is what you do to box out, and this is what you do. Like, if a guy got position on you first, how do you counter it? You have to teach that. But Bill Russell, just go get the ball. Just go get it. Like that was his coaching. And you can't do that for everybody.
Right. Yeah, you got to be able to teach people. And I agree, that word patience that's a really good point there, me. And because I feel like a lot of times they don't have that patience, and they want that quick success because, again, they feel that pressure of being a great player. And I feel like people expect like them to continue that greatness into whatever role they're in. I know in the NHL, there's been a lot of success with like former players, in the front office, like Steve Yzerman built a monster in Tampa Bay,
Good point,
Joe Sakic built another monster. And in Colorado, like there's been a lot of good. Brendan Shanahan's like done really well, and it's just. I think that sport's a little different. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's a whole lot less pressure compared to like an NFL team or an NBA coach or stuff like that. So I just also like I also think that like if the fan base is patient, I think you can be patient as an owner. But if it's you need a win soon. And I think these players start to feel that. They just go, man, you know what? Let's trade this pick. Let's go. Like, let's get this done quickly.
I think that's interesting because hockey does have that. And hockey, to me, is, you said less pressure, but I'll make a comment here, but I feel like the guys you're naming were all captains.
Yeah.
They were like the leaders even at times when they may not have been the best player, they were still like the leader. I feel like in hockey of the main sports, that captain role is
It's a big deal.
greater. It's greater than the other sports.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah.
And I feel like you're kind of like you're an extension of that message, like more so than the other. The other ones you have it too, but not like in hockey. You're really getting down and working with the other guys and grinding it out more. Like so, like that kind of I think fits better. I don't know. I think because you're right, hockey has it, but
I agree with that. I think I think you're right. Like you're leading men a lot more in hockey. And again, I know captain NFL, it's a big deal. Like I know all that, but like traditionally, like a hockey captain, like there was no other jersey with a C on it. Now you're seeing at least NFL's doing it now. And but hockey that was a big deal. Like who's getting to see this season? I even saw. It's funny you say that. I think it was the New York Rangers, like had like a on I think it was on Twitter, and it was almost like a mini movie on like who they were giving that
I saw that
captaincy to, and it's a huge deal, man. And I think I never thought about it like that, but I think if you have that in most of your career, which those two guys most of their careers were the captains of their team, that's a lot of pressure in itself, right? And I think you're there and you're building relationships, and you know how to do that. You know how to manage people, especially in the front office. You're going to need that.
And you're working with everyone. If you're the quarterback of the team, you work with you don't work with the defense. The defense is kind of over there. You're not working with special teams. So like even though you're the leader, you're not interacting with everyone every day. Derek Jeter was the captain, but he's not interacting with the pitching staff every day in the bull. Like he's not like in it with them like all the time. You know what I mean? So it's a different thing. Where with hockey, even with the goalie, you're interacting with everybody, all positions, all the time. You're always interacting, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, you're interacting with the coaches. You're interacting with the referees. So if there's a big call, referees who they pull, they don't go to the coaches. They pull the two captains, right? And they're talking to the captains, and the captains from there have to go back to the coach and explain everything, and then go to the team and go to the bench and explain everything that's going on. So that's I've never really thought about that. So I appreciate you saying that, because now it's going to stick out to me all the time. Like, because you'll see guys, and especially, and again, I know we're going on this a little while, but it's not always the best player who's the captain either. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like it's the player who can control, who can get the most out of their teammates. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of times nowadays it's more like the best player, because you want to put them in that position. Not even all the time, but it's a lot more often than it was before. But before, it was just who can lead these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, it was also like it didn't look good if you were the best player and weren't the captain, because again, like that means something about your leadership. So right. I just think, I think with Jeter, again, you're going to build relationships, but as he spoke to throughout this documentary, it was, if you didn't have that work ethic or that drive, he really wasn't messing with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you heard that, rest in peace. You hear that a lot with Kobe, and you hear that with Jordan. Like, and when you're like a front office CEO, whatever, you got to mess with everybody, no matter what, so.
Yeah, that's the case. There are certain positions. That's why sometimes I look at it, it's hard to be that leader, supervisor, because I'm an employee. This person gets on my nerves. I don't really, there's a way you conduct yourself in the workplace, but I don't have to mess with you. Like I don't have to talk to you. But like you said, when you're in that leadership position, I got to talk to you. I got to do that. Like that. Yeah. That's not acceptable to be like, he gets on my nerves, or he's not working as hard. Like, all right, well, he's a rookie. You got to help him. You got a second-year guy. You got to help him. Like, trade it. You got to do something. Or you got to bring in someone who is going to get it done. Like, there's no what you're going to do here. Right. So it's interesting, because that was a big part of this finale episode. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part of Jeter's post-playing career. Probably the biggest part so far was his time as CEO. And I'm curious, with some time off, I would like to see him in the capacity, get another crack at it and see what he can do.
Right. And I'm also, I give him a lot of credit, for him to say, like, the vision changed from when I started to what it is now, and I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I give him credit for that, because again, like, that can look like, man, like he really failed there, You know what I'm saying? But again, like, who cares about that? Like, it's about you. He's a winner. You know, that's what he kind of wanted to, and he was pushing that on the players. Like, he was like, no, we're not going to wait 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to try to win this year. And, you know, and everybody laughed, right? Everybody was laughing at him, looking at that type of team. But I give him credit for walking away and understanding, like, you know what, like, this vision change, it's not getting better. It's going to get worse. And I don't want to be a part of this.
And look at the contrast. What I'll give Jeter credit for, because we're looking at this as a documentary film, look at how, to me, Jeter and Cashman compared to Jordan and Jerry Krause.
Yeah.
Now, the difference, Jerry Krause was passed away when The Last Dance was filming, so he was not able to defend himself personally. So that is a difference. I do see that for everyone watching us. But I think even throughout how Jeter, was talking about him, it wasn't as much venom as Jordan talking about Krause in that present time. And big of him to, on his own to say he understands and sees how hard it is doing that position, where I don't think MJ, and to be fair, Phil Jackson even have said, like, really, hey, maybe we don't always still agree, but we understand how hard of a position Jerry Krause was in. So that to me was a big difference in one of the big differences, at least, between The Last Dance and this Captain docuseries.
Yeah, and even the story that Jeter mentioned, like at the Hall of Fame, he pulled him to the side and went for a walk, and they had that conversation. I thought that was really, like, really cool. Like, that was some, like, grown man shit.
Let's compare it to MJ's Hall of Fame, where what's he do? He bashes Jerry Krause,
right,
for a good section of it. And it's years after, over a decade after they have been together, and he takes that time to bash him. Jerry Krause wasn't even there, but was bashing him. So I like it brought the Hall of Fame, because that's a moment where Jeter, Hall of Fame him, but to spend that moment and to be a grown man, and like you said, to put the past away and be like, hey, like, I respect you. I see where you're coming from more. Jeter, like I said last time we did this, him as a man, his character, I respect it. I've gotten even more respect over this docuseries for him about who he is as a person, honestly.
Yeah, so do I. And I remember you mentioned that early on in this, when we were doing these episodes. So I agree with that. And even seeing him and hearing, like, and Mom's going to talk good about you anyway, but hearing him, like, hearing about, like, what kind of father he is, and he could tell he's, like, really involved with his kids, and that was cool to see, because again, like, the way he's so private, like, we're not going to see that ever again, unless his kids are older. But I did feel like it was interesting that he was talking about, when players have kids, and he was, like, jealous sometimes of, he would see players bring in their kids and stuff like that into the locker room. For me, as a parent, I would have loved to have that experience, right? Like, if I was a baseball player, I would have loved to have a son in there, like, and you see it all the time, like, with players in the past and present, but for him to say, like, it wouldn't have been fair to my family because he was so locked in, I thought was really interesting, because I don't think that would have been the case. I think, as you can see, like, once he would have had these kids, his whole philosophy would have changed on that. I don't think he would have been as driven. I'm not saying he wouldn't have been driven, but I think him thinking like that would have changed.
I think early from 96 to 04, I think I could see him being right. Like, if he had a kid, got married and had kids in like 98, 99, I think, he's right. It would have been unfair. Like, I think, and that's totally fine. We're allowed to be that's the thing. Like, you make that the right thing is, if you feel like you can't do it, then don't be a parent. If you feel like you're focused, that's nothing wrong with that. The struggle is if you're like, I want to be self, but then you have the child, and then you're being selfish, but then it's like, well, you made that decision, you and your partner, to have that kid. You got to be there. So I do think you're right, though. Later on, when he got the 5th title, I think if he would have had a child, I think he would have changed. He was older, more grounded, more mature. He wasn't looking to do the Playboy stuff, like going out like that. Like, I think he would have slowed down. I think he would have been good later in his career, in that regard. I do agree. I think early, though, would have been tough.
Yeah, I mean, early on would have been real tough. And him being young and in New York and being as big as he was and as successful, I thought that was interesting again because being the family man that he's turned out to be, because it's got to be a cool feeling as a dad to have like your 6-year-old son in the locker room and he knows all these famous baseball players. Like, I always say like the Suns, if they turn out to be players, they're always better because they get the better, training throughout. You know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff. Like the kids are always. If you look at it like Bonds, Griffey, like it's always, in my opinion, the kids are always turn out a little bit better. Steph, like all of it, like it's just from day one they get that great training that they're, the parents didn't have obviously because they came from a different situation. But I don't know. I just thought that was like an interesting take. And my one other take that he said, and it kind of made sense to a lot of stuff we've been talking about, and he kind of snuck that in there, and then it wasn't a big deal. But when he was talking about, like when they went into like him being like the first black CEO of baseball, right? And again, this is what 2017 when this was the case. Like, so let that sink in a little bit. Like, that's unbelievable to be honest. But when he mentioned, being a black athlete, he didn't want to ruffle feathers, right? And he said that, and it was just like they moved on to something else. And I was just sitting there like, I get what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like to be a minority and to like be like, I'm trying to controversial. It's they're going to rip you apart. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to just do that. But for me, it was like, okay, now I understand like why he was the way he was this whole time, this whole career. It's like, he probably was looking at it like from a point of view of a African American man. It was like, if I start creating stuff, this city right here is going to rip me apart. So let me not do that. But I thought that was really interesting. And he said that towards the end. And I was like, I wish he would have said and really like got into that a little more.
It's the truth. And he said it. And now you still have that gut decision. But I go through it at my jobs, when you are speaking, and especially on the topic of race, but we even, somebody would call it controversial, or you're just speaking up. Say outspoken, or you're just speaking your opinion. It is different when it comes from someone who's black than someone who's white. And it's that judgment of that zone, and then it is easy to get blackballed. It is easy to get like put aside, or if you go on a slump, then it's like here it is. Well, because he talked about this, he's not talking like it goes there, and they put more emphasis, more umph on it because of how you look. It's just the truth. A lot of athletes have talked about that. Hey, a white athlete can say the same thing, not even about race, just being outspoken. Like, hey, we all have to do better, and they quote it like we have to do better. The black athlete says that, and then hey, he's ripping his teammates. You look at it. I brought up on our podcast before Tom Brady when he's snapping on the sideline. What a leader.
What a leader.
When a receiver does that, when OBJ even does, and I wasn't the biggest OBJ fan. When he did it, he's a drama queen. He's distracting his teammates, blah, blah, blah. With Tom Brady, what a leader. What a guy. Peyton Manning, the story about him is gangster. About him just, receiver went up for the ball with one hand. He just says, get off the field. Just get off.
Or I'm never throwing you a ball again.
Yeah, or ripping.
If Cam Newton does that.
Right.
Totally
different story.
Right.
Totally different story. Him going, ripping O linemen and ripping. And Peyton Manning's I love Peyton Manning. I do. I have a lot of respect for him. But it's leadership when he does it. But when someone else does it, it's not. Someone who looks, not the same complexion as Peyton, it's not. So it's just, it's right. And it's the decisions. It's hard to navigate. And a lot of times we can bash. People in the own community will bash it and be like, you got to be louder. And I'm not saying that's wrong to not say something or be questioning it. It's hard. Well, there's no right answer, really. Besides that, remembering everyone's different because it's a tough space to navigate for everyday life, like someone like me and you, let alone when that spotlight is on you.
Right, because in everyday life, it's so difficult to navigate through that a lot of times I don't even try. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I totally back off, and whatever I want to say, I kind of keep to myself. I, as a professional playing in New York on the biggest team, probably in sports, with the New York Yankees, and being the captain and being a great player, I'm I'm definitely like every time I speak, I'm gonna take my time and really think things through, instead of just speaking on emotion. So I just again I thought that was really interesting, and I'm glad he said it. But again, I wish it would have been allowed for them to kind of like add more to that. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a great, powerful statement for me.
For me, what a couple of things I want to bring up to you. Number one is toward the end, and I kind of want to like dive into it a little bit. What about it where you heard them say, even from his own mom, an icon. And I think that's the right term for him. He's an icon. I think honestly, the last icon baseball has had, the last star, that last person. And I kind of felt that's why they showed that last game. I remember I had to watch it, and it wasn't like he was. I did. He's a guy who I saw his whole career. He's a great player that you knew he was going to be in the Hall of Fame, had clutch moments, but it was different where for me in that moment, I knew I don't know if we're going to have a guy like this where he's just that iconic for the sport and that known star carrying the sport. There's no one on the come up that I see for baseball. And I felt like this is the end of an era, and baseball's going to and we have gone to a different era in baseball. So what is it about Jeter to you that is like, well, do you think he's iconic? And if you do, what is it about him that makes him iconic?
Yeah, I think he is, and again, that's a really good point there because again, there hasn't been anyone who kind of is transcending in baseball, right? Like, there's been great players, better players than Jeter, right, that have come along,
Yeah.
but we don't even. I mean, if you have to be a baseball fan to know about him, you make the joke all the time. If Mike Trout walks in the supermarket, probably 97% of the people may not know who he is, and that's 100% true. Now, Otani right now, he's huge. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's really, if he continues on this, I think he can get to that level. But I don't know. I don't know anyone else because again, like I don't think America is going to allow it if it's Ronald Acuna. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think if it's a Latin player, the Tatis, like with the blonde dreads, they're not going to allow that. They don't want that to be the face of baseball. And even when it was Mike Trout, still, like it was hard for baseball to market that, which I can't believe. You know what I'm saying? But so in that case, yes, I do think he's iconic. Now, if you ask me, you know, give me a couple of the greatest Yankees of all time, right away I'm, oh yeah, Babe Ruth, DiMaggio, but Jeter's in there. You know what I'm saying? Like Jeter's going to be one of those names I'm going to say. Now, I'm not saying he's like as great as those players, but iconically, like to me, he is. You know what I'm saying? Like he was the Yankees for a long stretch, and we've said it on this show numerous times. He was not the best player on that team, but he was the biggest name on that team, and he was like the spokesperson for that team. So for me, he definitely is iconic, and I love the point that you mentioned because I agree with you. I think he was like a dinosaur at the end there. He was like the last of his breed that went from a baseball player to like where everybody knew who Derek Jeter was. Like he probably passed the mom test. Like my mom probably knows who Derek Jeter is, but
yeah,
if I ask her now, she probably thinks Chase Utley still plays for the Phillies. It's just there's nobody in baseball that it. Not in my opinion, but in general, like there's nobody in baseball that where they're that huge, and he was. I can't think of anyone else after that. So I have to agree. He's definitely an iconic person.
And I think that's what's fascinating as I get older, and I love talking about pop culture, history, and not just with sports, but all these things because you start to realize, I think I said this a little bit to you off air like a month ago or so. But I recently bought Chuck Klosterman's book, The '90s.
Yeah.
And it's about the whole decade, and there's parts on sports, parts on this and that. And it's funny because a lot of times, we kind of get to that thing about like image and popularity and what defines it and what is everlasting. So to me, like in the '90s, Nirvana is known as the biggest band of the '90s. I don't think they were the best band, and that's not even including all just rock and roll. I think you can name better bands in that decade who put out better music, but they last as like that image. And then you flip it to like who sold the most in the '90s? Probably Garth Brooks, and Garth Brooks was huge in the '90s, but no one mentions Garth Brooks now. So to me, it's very weird because Jeter. We've said it, and I think the numbers, even if you want to hate on us, the numbers will show during that dynasty run, at least, he was not the best player on the team. But what makes you iconic or a superstar is it's a weird combination I'm finding. It's like you got to have talent, but like it's a weird mix of stuff that makes you iconic because Bernie Williams is not iconic.
No.
But Derek Jeter is.
Right. Right. It's funny. Hey, you asked me this question. I was working, right? I'm working from home, and I had the Little League World Series on, right? I just had it on. I love watching Little League World Series, and you know how they have like those surveys and stuff like that, when in their bios and who's the best player and who's their favorite player and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see that. You know what I mean? Because I'm just curious, and the reason why I wanted to bring up Ohtani is like most of these kids, that was their favorite player. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think if he continues doing what he's doing, which is remarkable stuff, because even some of them, their favorite athlete was like Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? Like it was still out of baseball, and not to say just because you play baseball, your favorite player has to be a baseball player, but I just think this is the only shot for a long time again. You know what I'm saying?
But I feel like he's not even iconic, though, and it's not his fault. He has stardom, and to me, the only reason if he was just what he's doing, because he's doing something that's so unique, we haven't seen it in so many.
We're going to see it from now on, though. It's going to happen more.
Right, he's starting a trend. I feel to bring it back, but we haven't seen someone who pitches and is a hitter. A guy who can win the MVP and the Cy Young, the same person in the same year. Haven't seen something like that, forever.
Forever, yeah.
I feel like that's the only reason why it gets to talk, just because it's so rare. But baseball, I think, should be hyping this guy up as the star, and they don't do that.
Nope.
It's just like it's so historic. You can't justify saying you're a sports network or a sports show and not mention it. It's almost like it's forcing you. But if he just was a pitcher and was like an ace, the best pitcher in the game, you wouldn't hear about him.
Right. Right.
And that's where I feel like baseball, because you're right, Tatis and all these, they should be celebrated. They bring a lot of flavor, a lot of fun to the game that kids would like, and kids who look like me and kids who look like you. But that's not hyped up. That's not celebrated.
But they wouldn't do that. It would, in my opinion, and I know for a fact I'm not the only one with this opinion. Maybe on this podcast, but like I'll give you an example. I've been in places at games where they're interviewing, especially baseball. Like they're interviewing Latin player. He has a heavy accent, and you'll hear the stuff in the crowd. Like, what is he saying? I can't understand what he's saying. Like.
All the time.
Right. Like baseball is not going to promote these guys because, again, like they don't want that to be the face. And it's sad because they're, a lot of Latin players are their best players in the league. I don't know. But even, again, we go back to that same example we both always use. And when you look at Mike Trout, they did not. It was terrible what they did with Mike Trout. Like, and even when they were winning, like now, like, the Angels suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to be iconic, you have to have these huge playoff moments, I always feel, because then again, not everybody's watching you play. Not just, you're not regional at this point. Like everyone, all the fans are watching you play. So I think that's where
It definitely helps. Yeah.
right. I think that's what puts you at that other level. But even when they were having some success, we knew who Mike Trout was, but not too many people.
And the thing is, we can compare it to the NBA, where baseball's a global game.
Mm-hmm.
NBA's a global game. They embraced it. So now Luka has an accent. No one cares about that in the NBA, though.
Right.
No one cares about that. And I think that's, whether and however you look, guys from, Mutombo in the 90s had an accent. He was embraced, and you saw him in commercials and everything.
Right, Giannis and Embiid, like all these guys
have accents and embrace. But that's the thing. The NBA, especially since the 80s and stuff, it was a black league, and embraced, and all that stuff. So then it's like, it's okay. Baseball still, and we heard it throughout this docuseries, to connect it, steeped in that white, nationalistic kind of stuff, honestly. That white prejudice. It still is seeped in that big time, and it still is lasting. So instead of embracing the newness of the game, the globalization, and you can use that and make it more popular and better, you're sticking to this old traditionalist prejudice ideas, and it's really hurting the game.
Yeah.
Why should you not have a matchup if you get interleague game, Padres and Angels, the way the NBA would do Giannis versus Embiid, Tatis versus Ohtani coming up, Major League Baseball, Sunday Night Baseball, game of the week. I'm hooked on that.
Right.
I know me, and I know we're big sports fans. We're not the average, but if you hype that up, I think the casual fan will be like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to watch the whole series, but Ohtani and Tatis, that's the prime time. I'll watch that game.
Yeah.
What's been the most exciting stuff? The Cubs winning, which was a great story, but it's that old curse, that old history, blah, blah, blah. And it was great, don't get me wrong, but that shouldn't be, to me, like the big story of the decade nationally in baseball, like at least positive one, was just the Cubs stopped that streak. There's a lot of other great stories, too, that if you embrace these players and promote them and hype them up, you can get a lot of good attention in your game, but you're not doing that, and you continue to hurt it.
Right, and then they wonder why, baseball is at this point, like, if we could play hockey in the hood, baseball will be fourth. You know what I mean? Like, just hockey is just so expensive that, they're not doing that. But, then the league wonder why, like, there's no African-American stars, right? Because, again, like, you're not promoting your sport, in the inner city. It's more, and basketball is doing an amazing job with that, and football is doing an amazing job and have done for a long time. So I think, I think baseball is going to continue to suffer for this for a long time because, again, that good old boy mentality that they've had for so long and that tradition that it's going to be hard to break this for a long time.
I mean, look how much of a hell-raising thing that was a few years ago when Tim Anderson, a black player for the White Sox, when he got those home runs and he just tossed his bat toward his dugout, and the former player, the disrespect, and blah, blah, I would have pegged him in the ball, blah, blah, and it's like he didn't even flip it toward like the opposing. He got a hit. He did it. You know what? Guess what? Next time he comes up, you strike him out.
Right. Don't let him hit that home
It's run. Like in every other sport, touchdown dances they finally stopped that bat. That's embraced. 3-point shot, crossover. Baseball still, he tossed the bat, and it's a problem. Or the way he tried to cross the bases, I got to peg him. It's like, come on.
Or even like closers, a big strikeout, they like get excited. You can't, what are you doing? You can't do that.
You're showing them up.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, stop with these unwritten old rules from the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s and come up with the new stuff, man. Like, show excitement, show some flair. It's sports, for God's sake. Like,
it's supposed to be fun.
It's a great sport. Yeah, it's supposed to be fun, not, okay, I got this big home run. I have to trot a certain way or I'm showing you up. And if I, throw my bat or yell at my dugout, like that right there is an example of you're watching MLB Network, and I love MLB Network.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
great.
But the former players who were just, you can't, and I'm just like, yo, like, this is the problem. And then when some guys, I remember Robert Flores, the announcer, was on it, and he was like, this is the problem. I wouldn't care. Ooh, if my son did that, we're going to the car. I go, well, thank God you weren't my parent.
Yeah.
Because if you go into the car for someone to moat, God, like, come on, like that. He didn't, and don't get me wrong, if he curses out the opposing dugout, yeah, okay. He didn't do that. He flipped his bat. He got his guys fired up, and it was the biggest talk. And Robert Flores said, "This is what's hurting the game. This is why the game is dying." And the former players, no, Robert, I played the game. They shut him down.
Yeah.
He's right though. That's right. What the problem is.
Yeah, I saw recently Mookie Betts had a shirt. It said, like, I need to see more people like me at the game. You know what I mean? Like, that look like me, something like that. And he was like, they were like, what's going on there? Like, you know what I mean? I think he had it in the All-Star game or right afterwards. And he was getting interviewed about that and asking about that. And he was like, no, I just want to see more people that look like me at the games. Like, and he's 100% right. You know what I'm saying? Like, because for us growing up, you know, like African Americans were some of the best players like we've ever seen of all time, and it's not there right now, man. Like it's bad, you know what I mean? Like and they're not going to embrace the Latin that comes from another country, you know, who is struggling to speak English or may not even be speaking English and has an interpreter.
Well, let me ask you,
they're not going to export that.
You know, your father, your son's 17. For Latin players born in this country, if you're of Hispanic descent, where is baseball at with the younger generation? If you were born from here, is it strong? Do you think it's maintaining? Is it fading? Where do your opinion you think that is for being from here, from America?
Right. It's always strong. You know what I mean? Like that's what we do, you know, and especially, you know, where I grew up at, there's just tons of places to play. You know, there's two really big parks that you can go and play, and there's both leagues there. And, you know, looking at like the guys who I grew up with and what their kids are doing, and, you know, if I could take you there, which I'm probably going to one soon, Sundays where I grew up, there's a huge park, hunting park, and it's in North Philadelphia, and Sundays is.
No, I'm right from. I live.
No, not right you. I'm not explaining it to you. Yeah. I'm explaining it to our viewers. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
No, I know. G-Town. I know you already told me, man. But
yeah,
like that Sunday, man. There, like that atmosphere there. There's like 7 fields in that. You know, obviously you know this, but there's like 7 fields there. There are like 3 games going on at the same time. It's a fun atmosphere to be at. You know, but. So I don't think it's suffering with us because, again, like it's just that's what we do, man. You know what I'm saying? Like now basketball, I know basketball is starting to really elevate too in the Hispanic community for sure, and has been for a long time. But
because to me, why not? Do you feel like baseball advertises, all right, we know the prejudice against a player who is a minority and not from this country and has an accent or doesn't speak English. Do you feel like how are they doing with people who are of Latin descent and are from here? Are they hyping those players up enough?
I don't think so. No.
And that's my beat. That's why I bring that up to you, because there's great players who maybe they're not African American, but of Hispanic descent who are from here, and I don't feel like they're getting that attention either.
Right. And one player that was mentioned in this last episode was Jose Fernandez, and I feel like I thought it was interesting when they said when he passed, like how like the ownership was just kind of like done. You know what I'm saying? Like because he would have been a star. I feel like in this league, and he was young, handsome, great player. You know what I'm saying? Like was from the country, like so he didn't have an accent. So
and he bridged that Cuban.
Absolutely
that because that's a weird relationship with Miami and Cuba and that whole so he would have bridge that gap.
Yeah, so that was one who I feel like would have been really, they would have been doing a great job with him. But I don't even know they would have done a great job. But I just feel like where he was at, which he wouldn't have been there long, but where he was at the moment, I feel like it would have been easy to kind of like hype him up, and he was already getting hyped up, but. Even Tatis, if you look at him interview, and I know that's like a bad example using him today after he getting suspended for 80 games, but
yeah,
it's funny. I sent that to This guy, he works with me and stuff. He's like a huge Tatis fan. He's all hyped for him to come back, and then I think it was suspect that timing, but it's none of my business. But
Yeah.
even him, you interview him, well spoken. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just the look, and I guess they're trying to stay away from that. I don't know what they're doing, honestly. Like I can't even tell you like who like what's like the typical player that they promote because there isn't any.
Well, let's look at the year Aaron Judge is having, and Aaron Judge is funny. He's not built now. Besides being like biracial, him and Jeter are very different in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
But Aaron Judge is more exciting than Derek Jeter, honestly.
right.
Jeter could get clutch hit, but Jeter was not someone I had to watch every day. Aaron Judge is someone you can watch every day. He's putting up monster numbers. He's playing in the biggest market for the marquee franchise. I feel like he's not pumped like that.
No,
And he gets attention. If you pass me who the biggest star is, I kind of would say him by default.
this year, yeah, by default.
Yep. And maybe for me over the past couple years, I think I would say Judge has been, past like couple seasons. Like Bryce Harper kind of had it.
Yeah,
And I don't know if he still has it now. Like when he came to Philadelphia, I feel like it's faded.
yeah, it's faded.
But he's probably the last. But like I feel the past couple years, I feel like Aaron Judge has been the biggest star, and I don't feel like they pump him like that either.
And if you even ask me, like name top 5 players in baseball, I'm not even naming Aaron Judge in that.
I wouldn't either.
In that list, And but again, you're right. He's got 45 home runs right now. It's but when it was Mark McGwire, it was like, oh my God, Big Mac and shit, all this dumb shit, and it's weird, man. You know what I'm saying? Like it's different, and I just don't get what baseball is doing. I don't know what they're doing for the future. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very odd, man. I could tell you what the NBA, who they're hyping up and who they're going to be hyping up in the next few years. I can tell you who the NFL is. I can even tell you in the NHL, you got Conor McGregor, McDavid, McKinnon, like all these guys are being pushed, you know what I'm saying, to the limelight. I can't tell you who it is in baseball.
And baseball should be right there with the NBA, where we see these guys' faces. Just like the people say, NBA, we can see their face. NFL, there's a helmet. Hockey, you can see face, but there's a helmet, and
yeah.
The lines are shifting, moving all the time. Goalies you can't see their faces. But basketball and baseball, you see the faces. They should be getting pumped like that as being, Madison Avenue stars. And I guess to connect it is the fact is Derek Jeter, to me, he was like the last of like that Humphrey Bogart, actor kind of guy, like Frank Gifford in the 50s. He had that kind of feel, that old school, like smooth Madison Avenue actor, old like kind of guy, like, he was cool and like the chicks dug him and stuff. I think if the same type of career Jeter has it, and starting in the 2010s into this decade, he's not still iconic. And to me, that's a shame in a way. Like I feel like even though like he's a weird thing of he's overrated, but there's something about like I do understand the star status. I never was like, why is he a star?
Yeah.
Did he get overrated as a player? Yeah, but as a star, I think it's a shame now that if he had the same career with the same success, team and individual, I think it goes down by at least 50%, maybe even more. His star status.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and then also you take into consideration like social media and all that. Like he would have been doing his nightlife thing. It would have been everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like so,
Yeah.
even that, like the lack of, like. I can't think of the word right now, but the lack of like promotion that the MLB would do, you add that plus like you take away that part of Jeter's like legacy or whatever you want to call it, it would have been, he wouldn't have been as big for sure. Because again, we just talked about Aaron Judge and the stuff that he's doing. Now, if the Yankees are winning, they would have won back-to-back World Series, let's say last year and this year. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't feel that way with Judge. I don't think they would have hyped him up, and I don't think Jeter would have been as big, if he was playing today. So it's crazy, man. Because again, like we're the last generation there. I mean, like that baseball was like huge for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, and our kids are. My son doesn't watch baseball. You know what I'm saying? And he grew up playing baseball. You know, and it's just we're the last generation to keep this thing floating. You know, there's going to be fans, but not the way it used to be.
A lot of people put it on your son and his generation, and I feel like that is wrong.
Right.
And this is where I stick up for the new generation. No, baseball has failed them. They didn't turn their back on baseball. Baseball turned their back on your son and his generation, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had one question, right? I wanted to ask you with this documentary. If you had to compare the two, we've been comparing the Captain documentary series to The Last Dance. You know, which documentary for you was a better one?
The Captain.
Yeah, I agree.
The Captain was. Now, it won't get anywhere near as hype because, I mean, Michael Jordan's still a bigger star than Jeter.
Yeah.
A, and then B, you know, it was the world stopped when The Last Dance premiered. So, you know, that's unprecedented kind of attention.
Yeah, we needed that.
It was like helping to revive the country in a way. So that's why I take that out, because part of it was, even I was disappointed in it when it was airing after those few episodes. But, you know, if that aired a year later or aired at Christmas when it was supposed to, I probably would have faded on it like halfway. Like by episode 6 or 7, I would have been like, I'm done with it. This is stupid. But like, that's all we had in April, May of 2020. So it got it. But this was it was good through. It was 3 shorter episodes. It was good throughout. I felt like it was a balance. It was a much more balanced. It's still Jeter's perspective, but it was way more balanced than what the Jordan doc had as far as coming at the main subject. He was defending himself, but he let the criticisms come, and he let the real stories, especially about him as a player, come through, which I was very surprised about. I think it was, in a way, I'll say I love Jason Ayre. He's done great stuff as a director. I think this was shot better, like as a film. Like it was directed better, in my opinion, than what The Last Dance was. So I kind of just, and the story, it just, you did what you were supposed to do, which is you took a subject who was private and you know about him, but you don't know about him, kind of the same way with MJ. But I feel like I know him better after this. Where with MJ, I didn't know him any better. It was stories I had heard. This way, I don't feel like I got to know MJ better after watching The Last Dance. One way or the other, even if you were like, you don't like the subject, now you like him less, I'll still say, okay, you got a feeling from that person. But to be like just the same, and that's what The Last Dance did, that's the biggest difference. I feel like I got to know Jeter better in this docuseries.
So a follow-up question I just thought of while you were saying that. If Jeter's still CEO of the Marlins, 1, do they even do this documentary? And 2, is he as open the way he was to the criticism and stuff like that? Because I say no. Because Jordan was protecting the brand still. You know what I mean? Like, he was still protecting his brand, and he was still protecting that, like, I'm the greatest of all time type of stuff.
Jeter still has a brand now. Jeter's still part of the Jordan brand. He still has a brand.
He does, but
I feel like they do it still.
Okay.
Now, the Marlins part is not there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
If he's still CEO. So that last part is out. Everything else, though, I think Jeter would do it because, like you said earlier when we're talking, especially for the Marlins and how they're struggling and how they're not getting attention, I think Jeter would look at it as a way to get attention to a squad. So I think he would use that as a thing of, like, trying to get some publicity to it. And, like, he would have the Marlins in the end, but that'd be real fake. It's just, we're building a team, and they show clips of him at the ballpark talking to the players, and, you know, it'd be, like, corny. They show him, like, traveling to, like, you know, spring training and to watch a prospect. It's like, you ain't watching no prospects. But it's like, so you get, like, corn stuff at the end. But I think he would still do it. I think So that's good. Now, could you be now? What I was going to throw out was this. I was going to say let's rank them. OJ Made in
I was
America.
gonna do that, dude. I was gonna do that, but I already know your answer to that, so that's why I need that.
Well, I got Last Dance. I'm going to throw in, and I might be missing a docu series that I can't. But I'm going to throw in the '80s, the Mets, the Once Upon a Time in Queens. I'm going to throw in Dream On, but '96 Olympic squad, and the Captains. I give you 5.
Dude, I gotta remember all that.
ESPN's. I could. So there's 5. So OJ, Last Dance, the Mets, Once Upon a Time in Queens, which we did an episode on our podcast. Check the archives. Dream On, the '96 one that came out a couple months, and then the Captain.
So
you can go 5 to 1, 1 to 5, however you want to go.
I'll go 1. I'll go 1 to 5. I'll go.
Okay.
Made in America is number 1. Like that's like The Godfather. You know what I mean? Like that's like I'm not even. That's not moving. I say this Captain one, and it's not recency bias. I really, really enjoy this. And this came at a really good time where there's been some good documentaries lately, but I needed this long kind of like series. I just needed it. So I'm going to go with that number 2. Oof. That Mets one was good too. You know, like I don't know. See, The Last Dance was so long that it's hard for me to put that over The Last Dance, especially for those first 4 episodes. So I'm going to go Last Dance 3, Mets 4, Dream On 5, and even though Dream On was really good too, it's a hard list to rank, but that would be my 5. Made in America, Captain, Last Dance, Mets documentary, Dream On. What about you, Darren? Say it.
Made in America 1. Dream On 2, Captain 3, Mets 4, Last Dance 5.
Wow, Last Dance. I know you. Wow, I'm surprised by that.
And that's me as looking at it through the lens of what the docuseries did. Like, I think we didn't get a chance to, but I would love to get somebody like a writer of the book about it. What they did for the '96 for Dream On was really impressive, and it's a close one. That is real close with the Captain, but that was great to get revealed. It got down to the core. It was revealing. It was no holes punches. Like, why I put that over the Captain is we eventually did get there, but we were wondering in episodes 1 and 2, are we really going to get there on these tough topics of race and other things? Dream On hit you right in the mouth about, hey, image, gender, race, sexuality, everything. Just all that, boom, right in your face, and just they didn't hold any punches about, hey, the coach not liking these, but the coach being tough, and they're interviewing them, and no one really held back. People spoke candidly back for the old footage, and then you got it for the new footage. And also, I feel like that was the first time that I saw ESPN. They've been doing these women, 9 for 9.
37 words,
Yeah, and they did a few years ago, like little shorts on doc. I felt like they kind of did this service where there were some good topics, but they didn't you could tell the money wasn't put into the women's doc that they were on men's topics. This was the first one that I felt like they put a lot of resource behind doing it. And I'm like, that's what you need to do all the time, because women have great stories just like men do, but you're not telling them great. And they told it great on that one. So Dream On to me was really impressive. And I'll put that over the Captain. I like the Mets one a lot too, but I think it's 4th.
Yeah, and a side note, like the Dream On thing, like that docuseries, which was 3 episodes and they were all dynamite. We talked about it when it was going on. Like it was really, really good. The Rebecca Lobo stuff, like I was really surprised by that. Like because
which stuff?
Just her being on the team, number 1. Like because
there's a lot with her.
Yeah. In my mindset, watching them play, Rebecca Lobo is Rebecca Lobo. They just won the championship at UConn. She's a big deal. I'm thinking she belongs. She better be on this team. And man, like the way they made it seem like she should not have been on this team. That threw me for a loop for sure on that one. And then her relationship with the coach, like, good
Well,
stuff.
it's weird because I watched. My mom loved that team, and my mom loved Lisa. So I watched a lot of those games, and I am someone who does watch. I watch women's basketball. Like I watch like the women's Final Four. Like I do. Pat Summitt was love Pat Summitt. Gino, I grown to respect, but I am someone who will watch them. Not saying I watch them. I'll be real as much as the NBA, but I do watch it. And when you're younger, you don't have the words now because like back then, because Rebecca Lobo was weird because she won in '95 for UConn, but I watched her and I'm like, she's a star, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
And you don't really get why they're pumping her up or what. Like I knew then she was not like I knew Lisa Leslie, Dawn Staley, Cheryl Swoops. Those were the players on that '96
Cheryl
team.
Swoops, that was my girl right there, man. She was the shit.
So great.
Man.
That was the MJ of like women's ball, and it's like, but like Rebecca Lobo's being hyped up, and I'm like, well, she's nowhere near as good as them, but they're hyping her up so much. Why are they doing it? You're a kid, so you're like, I guess she's good. She's good, but she's not them. And it was like, so then you get the thing of like, hey, the NBA brass, they're promoting this league. They need a star, but they need a white star.
Yeah.
They need a white star and someone who is, and the hard part for me is Rebecca Lobo always seems so cool in interview. Like she's very likable. So I always feel bad. Even watching that movie,
I did feel bad for her. Yeah.
It's like, I don't think she was but I appreciate her honesty. She kind of knew, but didn't know how to say like that's messed up, but she knew why she was there, but she's young and it's in a different time in the 90s, but it's a weird thing. That she had to navigate all that. So like herself, but I just found that to be really interesting to see and like the way they did that. And Jennifer Azarati, them talking about players that didn't make 92 because hey, they knew that women players were gay, and some of them like they didn't make it because they were gay. Yeah. And they were wondering in '96 are they going to make it?
They were scared to that last cut, like they were shitting bricks.
And they didn't hold back in that docu. Like I did, those are things I did not know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't know either. Yeah. Yeah. It was. If you have not seen it, it's called Dream On. It's on ESPN Plus or wherever you find your documentaries. It's 3 episodes, all really, really good. It's a great one. Yeah. This was a tough list to rank, but The Last Dance for me, those first 4 episodes, really. I love them. You know what I mean? Like I did too. Love them. And it's hard for me to put anything else over that. But you had 2 on there. Made in America. We've spoke about that. We've done shows on that. You know what I mean? Check the archives. That's something I'm going to watch that probably after this. Now I haven't thought about it in a little while. But
it'll be tough for ESPN. That's the best thing that they ever produced. It'll be tough to top.
Yeah. So.
But that's how bad The Last Dance was. Maybe The Last Dance was 7 episodes, it'd be higher. It went 4 out of 10 in my opinion. Like
I hear you.
It was 40%. Like that was rough. That's why I can't. Those first 4 were awesome, and then after the 5, it was a big drop. I was like, "This is the Michael Jordan documentary."
Yeah, MJ took over.
It's not more revealing. It's just the same crap. Like.
Yeah, I agree with you with the Captain documentary series. I learned a lot about Jeter, not as a player because I feel like I had most of that down, but just him off the field and like you mentioned, like him as a man, like I felt like I did gain some respect for Jeter. You add that to his playing career, I think like iconic is a good way, kind of how they ended it. Like it's a good way to look at him. So. But it was fun, man, doing these shows with you, Jeremy, man, and doing a reaction show. So, I'm sure there'll be more documentary series that'll be coming out. We'll be doing the same thing on that. So, again, like and subscribe to the YouTube page, Bigger Than the Game, with Jeremy Jose. We're on anywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're on there. Bigger Than the Game podcast with Jeremy Jose. You can reach us on Twitter, Instagram @BiggerGamePod, let us know if you want us to do another, reaction episode to any documentary series that you really enjoy, or a documentary we haven't talked about. We'll be more than happy to do anything like that. But Jeremy, this was fun, dude. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. A lot of fun. And anybody, I know it's hard, but if you haven't watched these, watch the Captain, watch them all. Tell people to watch them. It was really good, really interesting. We're hoping maybe to reach out and get some people who are a part of the documentary to come on and talk about it too. Jose and I talked about that. So for the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jose Ruiz, I'm Jeremy Dove. Thank you guys for watching Bigger Than the Game.